Alrighty. Round two of trying to record this session. I think I had my mic turned off for that first. Yeah, so fun, fun, fun. Session 14. Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be a good one. We're going to be doing working with more React, and this is where it's going to start feeling like real application instead of just a demo. We're going to be building out multi-page apps tonight. Um, before we get into it, just want to check in with how everyone's week has been. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Congrats, man. Yeah, I know time management is probably the biggest struggle that like everyone has to like try to like learn. It's so difficult. But yeah, I've been still in the gym. I can still getting my 3 days on. I started doing creatine now. Apparently it's supposed to help. Science, sure, so we're getting there. We had a job interview this past Monday with a company. It was the most awkward and weird job interview of my entire life. Um, as I tell you guys, like, they're interviewing us, but we are absolutely interviewing them as well. Um, yeah, not for me whatsoever. I walked out of there beyond confused, scratching my head. It was, I even called my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't even know what to think about this. This shit was crazy. I mean, the guy only asked three questions. Yeah, he asked three questions and it had nothing to pertain to my resume, anything that I've done, nothing about the company, nothing about the 15-minute fucking video he had us watch. Nothing. Um, it was tech. It was for tech. It was for coding for junior level web application position for software engineering. Um, so junior software engineer. And I had the first question was like, what would make you happy at work? And at first, I was just like, I don't know, there's not much that would make me unhappy. I'm here to work. You know, and he was like, nothing would make you happy. I mean, everything would make you happy. I'm like, I mean, yeah, man. I mean, good communication. I mean, made a little joke out like a cat-free environment, maybe, because I'm definitely allergic to cats and he acted like it almost seemed like this guy was like tripped out on like some shrooms or something because that's not even how you act on weed. I mean, it was weird, man. He was just like, fucking throwing his head all over the place. It was, and I think that was the most reaction I got out of him the entire interview, right? And so he finally wraps his head around that. And the second question's like, you know, and oh, before that, and like, when I spoke to my mom afterwards, she was like, good response would be like, I'm looking for, you know, great leadership amongst the week cycles that provide clear directive and communication and concise goals that provide an enjoyable atmosphere to work in. I was like, oh, okay, hey, that makes a lot more sense, and that is a lot smarter. Now I know for next time. However, it was just a different question I was used to. I don't think I answered it wrong, but I think that was a lot better. Second question he asked was, yeah, second question was, what was a happy memory you have from a job? And, I used to work with franchise owners and, I directly dealt with their business and the customers and how, I had direct impacts of how their business was influenced, whether they got to keep that customer, retain the business, or if I had to take it away because they weren't doing a good job. And shared like a really heartfelt moment of like helping this one guy out because he was about to lose some accounts, and thought it was a good story. But guy barely batted an eye. Third question was just so unmemorable. It was because it had nothing to do with really anything. Um, and after that, he was like, okay, no, you can ask me questions. And, I came loaded with, after watching a 15-minute video, came loaded with some questions. And, one of the ones was like, hey, what about, this one potential app you guys have coming up that deals with like telemetry and yada yada, and um, he just straight up started yawning. Like, does talking about your own products and your own company bore you to death? And I try to make a joke, and then he's like, without, instead of realizing that he's being extremely fucking rude during an interview, regardless of you being the interviewer or not, yawning and is just rude. And then when being called out on it, it's like, in a kind of a joking manner, like, oh, hey, I was like, I hope my questions aren't boring you a little bit here. Um, he's just like, oh, looked down at the ground, talked very, very softly, and was just like, oh, I have a 15-month-old who's sick at home, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that, but like, bro, do you want to reschedule this? Because like, you were being, you know what I mean? And so like, I asked like 4 or 5 questions, and I was like, I think that's better. He's like, that's it? Motherfucker, you only asked me three, and you asked me nothing that pertains to me. So I asked, I think, like one or two more, and I tried to get some emotion out of him, but the most eye contact I got was when he gave me a handshake goodbye. And I just walked out of there like, what the fuck just happened? Like I drove 30 minutes all the way out there. T-Mobile crashed, and I don't know if you know this, but yeah, T-Mobile crashed. So I had SOS signal, like I guess like it was nationwide. Everybody lost service, and like so I could barely get somebody on the phone somehow, and the phone kept dropping out, and I'm like trying to figure out like, hey, where do I turn? Where do I turn? Put in all this effort and energy to make it to this damn interview, dress up, look good, the whole nine, took notes on the video, came up with great questions, and then to be treated like that was just some bull fucking shit. It did. It really did sound like he had his mind made up already, which is why wouldn't you have just canceled the interview? Now, I'm still gonna get dinner with my buddy on Monday regardless. I mean, you didn't have to get. So, but it's hard enough for us to get interviews out here and then to be treated like that. So like, in my eyes, it's not the right job for me. I don't care if they call me back or not, whatever. But just I guess it happens to everybody. There's different people out there, and it's just as much of an interview for you as it is for them, I guess. So no hard feelings on my side. I know I came prepared and I acted properly and I acted professionally. I know that he didn't, so I know where I stand. So shouldn't have been so eager and excited to work on something that I thought might have been really interesting. But I guess I like even one of the questions asked was, what was something you recently shipped that you guys are proud of? And he just sounded so damn uninterested. Like he could care less about what they just did. And it's like this is and you want other people to care? Like, damn, dude. But other than that, it's been a good week just working hard, working hard. So um yeah, last week we went deep on hooks, use ref, use context, memo, callbacks, custom hooks, and some accessibility. It was a pretty dense session. Shout out to everyone who was able to push through on the Code Dojo. Um, what we are framing for tonight, every React app we've built so far lives on a single page. One URL, one component tree, everything rendered at once. That works for demos and exercises, but it's not how real apps are built. Real apps have a homepage, a dashboard, user profiles, a setting screen for things like that. And tonight we're going to add some routing, and the whole thing starts to feel like a real project. So we'll jump right into it with how client-side routing works. So before we even write any code, we're going to understand what's actually happening with the client-side routing because it's fundamentally different from how server routing works. Traditional server routing, every time you click on a link, the browser makes a new HTTP request to that server. The server looks at the URL, figures out what to return, and sends back a whole new HTML page. Full page load, everything resets, scroll position, component state, everything. Um, And that would be your traditional server routing side. Let's see. Zoom out a little bit. There we go. Then you have your client side routing. This is going to look more where the browser loads the React app once, the HTML file, one JavaScript bundle. After that, when you click a link, the React router intercepts that navigation. It updates the URL in the browser address bar using the browser's um, history API, but does not make a new HTTP request. Instead, it just re-renders the component tree to match the new URL. No page reload, status preserved, transitions are instant. Um, and this is why React apps feel so fast. The initial load might take a second, but once you're in, you're in. Navigation is immediate. Um, the big trade-off here, since the server only serves one HTML file, you need to configure it to send that same file to any URL. If someone navigates directly to, say, slash dashboard or refreshes on, say, slash profile, the server needs to return your index HTML and let React Router just take over. This is common deployment gotcha. So welcome back to it. Um, yeah, the setup. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Notes in the reveal deck are a little off. All right, so now we're gonna have write some code. Obviously, all of my code's already written, because fuck that. It would take some time to write all this up. Um, so the first thing you want to do is, installation. That's going to be your npm install, um, npm install React dash router dash DOM. React Router v6 is what we're using, the current standard. Your API changed significantly from v5. So if you see older tutorials, the syntax will look a little bit different. But this would be like your basic setup. Um, 'Cause yeah, I don't think I have I don't have it on here. But yeah, you guys know how to install. Um, so there's three different pieces here. First piece is we have our browser router. We want to make sure this wraps our entire app. Provides the routing context. Everything that uses routing must be inside this. Then you have your routes. That's the container for your route definitions. It looks at the current URL and renders the first route that matches. Then you have your route. Um, that defines one URL to component mapping path, uses its URL pattern, like element, um, to get what renders when it is matched. So, players trying to find the players page, same thing with the about or the home page. Um, which your home page, which just needs to be a standard slash because that typically goes home. Not typically, it does. And that's the whole foundation. When the URLs, oh yeah, I just said that. One thing that changes from v5 to in v6 is that routes are smart about matching. It automatically picks the most specific match, and you no longer need to extract it, or you no longer need exact. Um, the old switch component is gone, replaced with routes. So it's just a little bit better syntax. Mhm. Now that we have routes, we need navigation. Never use regular, like aref tags, or like anchor. What would that be? An A would be, yeah, artifact with href, yeah, an artifact tag. Inside the React Router app, those trigger full page reloads and defeat the whole purpose. So you want to make sure that you're using these instead of like the these right here. Boom. Um, Links. These are the most basic navigation components. So you using two instead of href, that's really the only difference visually. But under the hood, it's using the history API instead of requesting for a new page. And then you have your NavLink, which is yeah, NavLink, um, where the same link, but where it's the same as link, but knows if it's active. So NavLink passes like an is active to the class name function, and when the URL matches to the prop, is active is true, we use it to highlight that current page in our nav. The active state styling is something every app needs, and then NavLink gives it to you for free. Dude. Uh, yeah. Dynamic routes. Um, Static routes get you to players, but what about specific players like player one or 42 or even player like Mike? That's where dynamic routes start to kind of come in. And this is where you can use that, your IDs. It's a URL parameter, or a placeholder, if you will, that matches any value. Um, so to read the parameter inside the component, we use params. useParams returns an object with all the URL parameters for the current route, and then you destructure the ones you need. So, like a real world example here would be like fetching data based on the URL parameters. Player detail. So, then, yeah, like that one. You see, yeah, like this one. So notice the ID in the dependency array. If the user navigates from player 1 to player 2, the component stays mounted, but the ID changes. So the ID here, right here, so that changes. Um, the effect reruns and fetches the new player. This is exactly the pattern you'll use in every detail page of a real app. It's like a good interview call out, not the interview that I was at, of course, but in a good interview. They will typically ask, how do you access URL parameters in React Router v6? And you could tell them you could use params, um, which returns an object of all params for the current route. Um, Nested routes and layouts. Here's one of the most powerful features of React Router, nested routes. Um, these let you build layouts that persist across multiple pages without repeating yourself. So something we could possibly use in the current hackathon. um, think about a dashboard, a sidebar, or even a header, or they are always there, but the main content area changes based on the URL. Jeez. Outlet is the key here. It's the placeholder that tells React Router rendering the matching child route here. Um, like dashboard layout always renders, sidebar is always visible, and outlet swaps between dashboard home, players, and stats based on that URL. The index route index, or like element here, renders when the URL is exactly slash dashboard with nothing after it. Um, so right here, so like, yeah, slash dashboard, then after it. The URLs this produces would then be dashboard layout plus dashboard home, dashboard players with layout, players, stats, dashboard layout, then stats again. The layers of the layout renders once and then persists, and then the child swaps, and then this is how every real dashboard is typically built. Just shifting things around. Sometimes you need to navigate from JavaScript code, not from the user clicking a link. And after a form submission, or after a successful login, or even after deleting something and going back to the list. That's where useNav will start to come in, which I think this one. Yeah. So yeah, my notes are all out of whack. So yeah, navigate. You said like the slash dashboard. You want to. This will push a new entry onto the history stack. Same as clicking a link. You have a couple useful options on here as well for navigation, which replace. So like true is important for authorization flows after login. You don't want the user to be able to click back and then land on the login page again. You want to replace that in the history. So when they go back, um, it goes to wherever they were before they were logging in. And then we can jump back to protected routes. Um, So protected routes. So real apps have pages that require authentication, like profile or even the dashboard. If you're not logged in, it'll typically redirect you to that login page. Uh, Good, good. Um, so like navigate is React router's redirect component. When rendered, it immediately navigates to the specified path. Um, dot replace means it replaces the current history entry so the user can't click back to the protected page. This pattern, a wrapper component that checks off and either renders children or redirects, is the standard across every real code base and will typically feed into a 404 catch-all, where your path with the what is that, an asterisk, or what is that those are called? There's an asterisk. I know it's not the ampersand. That's the yeah, Mr. Star matches everything that didn't match a previous route. You put that last, and that's going to be your four page. Um, so a real world build. So we're going to put it all together. A realistic app structure sort of look like this. And what this gives you is a good public route for home, a public home page. Login form navigates the dashboard on success. Dashboard protected shows layout and home. Um, with the players, protected player list, protected player details with useParams. Protected settings page, and of course the 404 page, which you put at the bottom, like we specified on here. Um, this is the exact same structure you'd see in in production a reaction of a React application. The routing is just the skeleton of the app. Everything else just hangs off of it. Um, Other than that, it is game time. Was it F11? F11. Alrighty. What is the key difference between client-side routing and server routing? What you got for me? Swear to God, these things could keep coming out to like the same thing every time. Uh, why should you use why should you use instead of in a React Router app? Hmm. Hmm. I I think it. it didn't give us the full question, but I assumed it was this. I assumed it was talking about this. Based off of why should you use blank instead of? It made me think of you should use to instead of href, right? Um, so that's where my brain went. And then it was like, okay, well, C says causes a full page reload, defeating the purpose of client-side routing. That makes sense in terms of the to href. And so that gives us the full, yeah. I don't know what went on with the program today. Yeah, what is going? We have some technical difficulties tonight, people. Um, yeah. Ba-dum. Well, shit. Well, we can give this one a try. Write a function called match route that takes a pattern string and a URL string, returns true if the URL matches the pattern exactly, false otherwise. Static paths only. So that's one way to do it, or it looks like that works as well. Yep. So even though that technically would be wrong, and there's that. Yep. Ba-doop-a-doo. Write a function called extract param that takes a route pattern like player's ID and an actual URL like players42, returns an object with that extracted param or null if the URL doesn't match the pattern shape. So like this is what it would be, this is what it is they expect to return. So it'll give you the ID but on the opposite side, and then the players, and then it'll give you a hint. Oh, it had like a whole ass thing for it. Oh, look, I had that the whole time. We'll have one more and then we'll wrap it up. Same. I got a 12-hour shift and the gym. We got back in buys tomorrow. Function called build path that takes a route pattern and a params object and returns the URL with params. Ooh, substituted. Yeah. I see. I don't fucking know. In a loop. Let's see. All right, let's break this down. All right. We'll do one of my favorite things. See, I still learned to. This is small utility for filling placeholders in a URL, blah, blah. Okay. So step by step. So object entries, params, turns user ID 42 and post ID into an array of key and value. Reduce walks through the array carrying an accumulator from one iteration to the next. So yeah, I think my games are a little junky today, but other than that, but yeah, I'll post those into the resource channel so we can at least still look over those later and do this when it's not so late. But that was session 14, React router, client-side routing, how it works and why it's different from server routing. browser routers, route, the setup foundation, link and NavLink, navigating without page reloads, dynamic routes and use params for URL parameters for detail pages, nested routes and outlet layouts that persist across pages, useNav for programmatic navigation after form submissions and logins, protected routes for redirecting unauthenticated users, and 404 catch-all routes. Um, our React apps now have pages that change everything. Next week, we're going to keep building forms, state management, or even some fetching patterns. We'll figure it out together. If you're not in the Discord yet, drop a comment or shoot an email. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you guys next week with some better made games. I promise.